So my presentation is titled Top 5 SEO Conundrums. I'm kind of like that guy right there. He's in a little bit of a conundrum. But sort of talking about issues that we see a lot in large e-commerce sites, things that these sites struggle with or challenges and how we overcome them. So first of all, if you guys have seen me speak before, I'm going to go into sort of a philosophy. I'm going to stand up on a soapbox. I'm going to talk about how we think about SEO, then talk about the importance of getting buy-in from the C-level at the top of the company down in order to see the performance that you'd like to see in your SEO campaigns. The premium of, it seems like a simple thing, but plain text on the website and how important that is and how hard that is to do, but how useful that is for SEO. And then a few technical SEO problems that we see a lot: pagination and faceted navigations, things like sorts and different permutations that visitors can use to kind of, do Boolean search on the fly. And then a little bit about internal linking. So these are sort of the large issues that we continually see time and time again when we audit sites, work with companies, etc. And I guess this guy does get away and gets in his truck, which is kind of unbelievable, actually. This polar bear is stalking this guy, That's just life in Alaska. Let's see how this works. Okay, so I'm going to try to play you guys a video first. Did anybody see Matt Cutts talk about what it takes to rank #1 in Google a couple weeks ago?
Hey everybody, Matt Cutts here. Hi everybody. Hello. Anybody's welcome to show up. It's a party in here, so... Hi everybody, Matt Cutts here. Wow, so many questions. We have a fun question today from 1 billion people in the Philippines. Matt, your Webmaster Help videos are a big success and I think everybody loves them. Yay! It's a great help for webmasters. But if one wanted to rank #1, how would you go about doing this? On what basis are the results ranked? Wow, really good question. I don't think anybody's ever asked me that before. Oh, I know this answer. Very good question. I'm glad you asked it. Breast. Oof. That's a really interesting question. Oh boy. Okay, keyword density. Let's talk about it a little bit. There's one recipe and you can just follow that like, baking cookies, and if you follow it to the letter, you'll rank #1. And that's just the way it works. The first time you mention a word, hey, that's pretty interesting. It's about that word. The next time you mention that word, oh, okay, it's still about that word. And once you start to mention it a whole lot, then that might help with your ranking, absolutely. What is the ideal keyword density? The answer is 77%. Get the same phrase on the page as many times as possible. There's lots of different factors that would make you rank well, but fundamentally, in addition to keyword stuffing, we look at links to porn sites. Not that many people tend to link that much to sites within the porn industry. That's the sort of thing that's going to be really rewarding for users. So, link to porn sites. Could it be annoying? Yes, it could be annoying. It might be really annoying, and that's perfectly fine. So another thing is you will rank higher because you run AdSense. It's definitely the case that you get some boost because you run AdSense. So I absolutely would recommend you run AdSense. That's a really nice feature. So yeah, that would be an opportunity. So that's just some very quick advice about how to rank #1. And, this made me feel really good. I go to bed at night sleeping relatively well, knowing that I'm trying to change the world, and I think that's fantastic. But also, I do think that Bing or Bleco or DuckDuckGo are potentially doing illegal things like hacking sites. Let's take a step back and stop hating on everybody for a second. Peace out, spread the love, don't worry about it that much, and keep working on making your own website as good as you can.
So, everybody get that? Keyword stuffing, 77%, optimal keyword density, linking to porn sites, and running AdSense. So now we really are going to move into the Q&A. Oh, man. What's amazing about that is how consistent Matt Cutts' voice is the entire time, and his shirts. Okay. So in all seriousness, what is our approach to SEO? Well, generally, I like this quote and sort of dumbing down Einstein for SEO purposes. But really, the way that we think about SEO, I think this is apt. SEO is really as simple as, we can make it as simple as we need to be, but not any simpler, right? And it really is simple. And it's very, very, in its most fundamental. It's about accessibility. We want search engines to be able to find our sites, access the content on the sites, have a great experience for users, and get people to talk about, link to our sites, etc. So the recipe is pretty simple, right? SEO is not that difficult. But then you introduce different CMS platforms, different software, stakeholders within an organization, with vendors, with partners, different business decisions. So sometimes there are negative or positive SEO ramifications because of a business decision that happened, like moving sites, changing domains. Many, many possibilities within SEO because it's a completely wide open field, right? There are best practices, but there really aren't any set recipes that you should follow, like 77% keyword density on a page. There are all these different situations. We always talk about, at RKG, about how SEO is very situational, being that the answer so many times to a question of what is the right thing to do in this case is, well, it depends. So SEO is complex when it comes right down to it because of all that stuff. And it's also a really long, hard road. It's very hard to show results in the first, say, 30 days. You can't just turn on SEO and have it start working, right? It takes 3 to 4 months, which is much quicker than it used to be. It used to be we'd tell companies, we'd say, well, we can start to show you results in 6 to 9 months. Now it's more like 3 to 4 months because of how quickly Google is crawling the web, discovering the content, and then making changes to its index due to caffeine, which was a large update prior to Panda. But while SEO takes all this time and it's very complex and it touches so many different things, we're also very, very busy doing so much stuff all the time. Because a typical day is you're hurdling tacklers, right? You're putting out fires, you come into the office and you just have a lot of stuff going on at once. So that's kind of a conundrum and a paradox in that SEO is this long, slow process, and you quickly and easily get detoured by all the stuff you have to do day to day. And meanwhile, so many different compromises present themselves in front of us time and time again. And SEO, in order to be successful with SEO, it's really the sum of so many little things done right. It's all these different things that put together create success. There's never a silver bullet that when we do this one thing, we're able to really move the needle. So every compromise can be a big deal when you put them together. And you have all these stakeholders and interest groups focused in on trying to do that one thing that you want to. You have people from different departments and different business units also interested in that particular thing. So with SEO, the one thing that is key to SEO success, and sometimes prospects and clients will ask us, well, what is the one impediment to your success that you've seen again and again? And it's execution or lack of execution. Really, implementation is everything, and recommendations are useless if they sit on somebody's desk, no matter how good they are, and we go over them with the teams. If things aren't implemented and executed on, then there's nothing to show for it. Whoops. That and SEO is very situational. So 9 times out of 10, when we recommend something like an SEO recommendation for pagination or for you name it, whatever it is, it's going to be custom and unique and different based on the particular situation. And we might have 3 or 4 or 5 different possible recommendations based on what the company can do, what the company wants to do. I always laugh at stuff like this because this is life in enterprise SEO and in e-commerce. The group working on the URLs was laid off, but the meta tag people are still here. And so SEO is like, we can't change URLs, or we can't change the global navs, or we can't place internal links on the site, or we can't modify title tags, but we can modify meta description tags. There's always a win-loss. We're never able to do everything that we want to do. So in this climate, the idea of best practices, which are very useful, really only get you to a certain point. And beyond that, you need something a little bit more. You need competitive advantage. So, this might be a best practice for sliding, but Pete Rose does what baseball tells you should never do. He slides headfirst into home plate. And it worked very well for him, and he scored a lot of runs. And then he gambled on baseball and got kicked out. But look, he's probably going to make like $2,000 that day. So he's like, I'm going for it. We have to take risk, but we have to take intelligent risk. And intelligent risk is not buying a bunch of links with your money, anchor text. And intelligent risk is doing things like coming up with interesting, out-of-the-box content strategies, building out new blogs, and you name it, stuff that you may not be able to completely prove in a business case, although you'll do your best, but that you have to try and potentially fail and iterate and try again until you're successful. Risk is key in SEO, absolutely. And as is innovation. Some of the best companies, the companies that have succeeded in SEO online and e-commerce have innovated. So all this stuff said, right, SEO should be very easy. And I always think of it kind of like an SEO is almost like a doctor, a mechanic version of a doctor in a way, because health is really easy, right? When we think about what does it take to be healthy, well, we need to eat well, and we need to drink water a lot, don't drink alcohol, exercise. It's really easy to say, but it's super hard to do. And so in order to do SEO right, we have to make sites accessible, get a lot of links, easy to say, hard to do. And we end up doing a whole lot of stuff. Even though SEO is simple, there are 10 or 11 categories of things that we're going to look at for an audit. They're all going to affect and impact the SEO campaign. And these are just things that we can put down in a list. So this is only scratching the surface of the possibilities that we need to look at. And we do it all to make SEO invisible. So one of the mantras that we sort of say around RKG is that SEO should be this invisible layer. You shouldn't be able to even see SEO on a website unless you're another SEO looking at the site. It shouldn't be front and center. It shouldn't be the most obvious thing. What should be the most obvious thing is a great user experience and a wonderful differentiator, a wonderful value add, something that makes you really want to go to that website, and then you can leverage it and maximize SEO. So first you need a great user experience, and you need a great product. You need something of real intrinsic value there. Then you can leverage that for SEO. Shouldn't be the other way around. When SEO kind of becomes number one and the most important thing, that's when content mills and Panda, Google's algorithm, came and hammered those. That's when things like that are sort of SEO games and tricks start to turn off users, make Google's search results less relevant, make Google pissed off, make Google make changes, make Google hammer sites. Penguin is similar. Penguin is the update more recent that affects anchor text and off-page linking signals. Now I want to talk about how SEO kind of touches everything within an organization. And one of the challenges, conundrums of SEO, is that it really does touch everything. So for many years, I headed up Zappos SEO strategy, and people would come to me and say, oh, that footer, is that working for you on Zappos? We looked at it, we saw the footer, it looks like you're doing a lot of stuff there. The footer spans, I couldn't even fit it on one slide. And I was like, oh God, that's not our footer. That's not an SEO footer. We don't like that footer. We don't even own that footer. It's not ours. There are many aspects to a large e-commerce site that are out of our control when it comes to SEO, because SEO is simply one channel. It tends to be an excellent profit center, but it's simply one channel. So when I look at a site like Target and I see their kind of honestly obnoxious flyout menus that they have on the global nav, and they're highlighted in pink because pink is showing all the no-follow on the page. So those of you that do SEO obviously know no-follow is a link level attribute that's an SEO tactic, or can be. This is a disgraceful global nav, I gotta say. This is horrible. And I think to myself, well, it might not even be the SEO team's, they may want a completely different global nav, and they have to live with this, and so they have to hack it, and they have to add all this no-follow. By the way, it's interesting, we looked at Target recently, and their content network, so RKG's clients' content network clicks off target.com, which is one of the largest search partners to Google, have just plummeted right around April 24th, April 25th when Penguin was rolled out. So I don't know if you saw the blog, but there's speculation that potentially Target was hit by Penguin. And we looked, and I didn't put all this stuff in the blog post, but we looked at their backlinks and we found 3 categories: electronics, toys, and baby, where Target had a whole bunch of rich matching anchor text for those, and about 100 to 150 links that were pointing off different domains to their main category pages. And when I went to check on those links, they all 301 to the home page. So either they had a whole bunch of duplicate sites with links linking into Target, or they were doing something else shady and then went to cover it up by 301ing, redirecting all the old stuff. But I pretty much think that's how they got pantsed on this one, but I didn't want to call it out on the blog because it's just not very good webmastering etiquette to do that. So we don't own everything on a website, but SEO lives in all these places. So in marketing and engineering primarily, right? And the SEO spans, the technical to the marketing. But within marketing, there's brand, there's social media, there's PR, there's all these different divisions where SEO is absolutely integral. And then there's engineering, and then there's back end, there's front end, there's IT, all those things, absolutely essential. And then across merchandising teams, content teams, user interface, taxonomy, content, truly SEO touches everything. All of these areas funnel into the CEO. The CEO greatly cares about all these areas, obviously. So ultimately, the recipe for success within an organization, in my experience seeing this for many years, it always works best when the CEO is interested and at least present once a month, whatever, emails with the SEO campaign. When the CEO is focused in on SEO, even if it's just 1%, 2% of his or her time, it can be greatly, greatly beneficial. And a great example of that is Tony Hsieh at Zappos, who from the beginning was incredibly involved in the SEO program at Zappos and helped to really helped its success hugely because he knew how to, when he would get an article or an interview in Wall Street Journal, New York Times, he knew how to ask for links or have his PR team ask for links the right way. He knew the things to say in order to get the right links, etc. So very, very, very powerful. And it doesn't have to be the CEO, although that would be best, but just upper management, executive level, because a lot of times SEO is going to be fighting for resources against everything else, and sometimes there's make or break moments in SEO where we need to get something done because it's going to sabotage the campaign. It's going to make us start back at zero and start over again, and you need buy-in from the top in order to push resources the right way. And those of you out there, in-house SEOs, know what I'm talking about. Right, Shane? All right, so SEO isn't everything. It's just one thing, right? But it touches everything. So the things that are key to SEO working within an e-com, C-level buy-in or upper-level management buy-in, and then great SEOs that can do both the technical development side and the marketing side. They don't need to program necessarily, but they need to be well-versed in the technical side so that they can talk to the development teams who are the people so much of the time that SEOs need in order to get things done. And then user experience is absolutely paramount and the first most important thing, and also just to pick your battles because you're not going to win everything. And I don't think we've ever had a client that was able to implement 100% of our recommendations. Maybe the best we've ever had, what do you think, Meg? 75%? 75% is high. 50%, 60%? Oh. All right, let's talk about plain text. So a few of the slides in here, I talk about some of our attendees' websites, all of which are our clients, some of which are our clients on SEO, some of which are clients on paid. And the purpose is not to call you out, and you don't even have to raise your hand or anything, although we know who you are. The purpose is simply to use you guys as an example of the stuff we see all the time. So you're not unique in this, and you're not bad. It's just the way that it is. And you happen to be sitting in this room, so I wanted to use you as the example. 1-800-Flowers, fantastic site, real business, knows, very sophisticated, savvy company, great SEO team, online marketing team. One of the things we see a lot is sort of a lack of plain text content on the pages, right? So here's a main category page for flowers, the flower arrangements page. Long scroll down, and there's a footer with some text. Perfectly understandable why this is, because this is life at a company. The main focus is to sell flowers, right? And users don't necessarily even want to see that content above the fold. Sometimes a little bit helps, but it's not the most important thing that goes on the page. So there's some text down at the bottom that kind of talks about them, and it's good for search engines and stuff. At the top, there's this little bit of text, and then there's a read more link, and when you click on that, it expands all of this, and there's all kinds of great original text in there talking about differentiators and what 100 Flowers can do, etc., some of their credibility and recognition, and that's awesome, and that's in source code. But when you turn everything off, when you turn off JavaScript and images and cookies and everything, you can't execute that read more link. Now, Googlebot can execute JavaScript, but it's not it's not an equal to a plain HTML link. It won't be counted the same way, and Bing surely cannot execute it. So the problem is you have all this text in source code, and you really only have that much rendering on the page. And when one chunk of text is in source and one chunk of text is on the page and they're not the same, that's a big red flag. Bad Panda bad. This is Googlebot Panda comes in and says bad, bad, bad. Now this isn't enough to really smack 1-800-Flowers. It's a great site. Again, this is a real company doing good work. But this is another sort of block to stack on top to fix and get right in order to help that SEO campaign. If this were a smaller site and it was doing this, this could be enough to actually have a penalty applied to the site. So it's not ideal, but it's also the reality. Quickly, just ways that you can verify if text is crawlable on the page. Just do this, when you're looking at the site. Turn off JavaScript, images, cookies. The easiest way to do this is to use Firefox and use the Webmaster Web Developer Toolbar. You can just toggle them on and off very, very quickly. Look at Google's text cache. So take any URL, do a site colon in front of it, and look for it in the index, and then hover over it. Now it's harder and harder to find the cache. You have to hover over it. You have to get the preview snippet, and you can click on the cache there. And there's a plain text version of the cache too. So it takes a few clicks to get to. But it's a good way to see what Google's seeing. Lynx is a plain text browser, and Lynx lit on a Mac if you're using a Mac works really well. It doesn't execute. I think it will execute simple JavaScript, but it's basically no styles, just plain text, what a search engine would see. And then SEObrowser.com, easy way to do the same thing. So if you ever have a question or someone in your company has a question of, hey, is this crawlable? Are the search engines seeing this? You can use one of these methods to quickly and easily check it out. So we all know content is good and content on the page is good and helps search engines and all that stuff, right? Users come first and revenue comes first. So it makes a lot of sense to put products front and center on 1-800-Flowers and any other e-commerce site, because that's what users are really looking for. But ensure the text that you do have there is crawlable, number one, and also renders equally for the bots as it does users. It's hard. It's sort of hard to do, but it's something that read more link that 1-800-Flowers uses could be in CSS rather than JavaScript. And then just verify crawlability sometimes. All right, pagination. A topic near and dear to my heart, and a constant struggle for e-commerce sites. So on the left-hand side are facets, and I'll talk about those in a minute. And then right here are different sorts, and then right there on the right-hand side in the middle of the page is the pagination. So about 1,400 items found, 120 pages of stuff. So this is really an interface problem, right? There's all that data there, and we just need to surface it to users in a way that's easy. And you can't really put 1,400 items on a single page. It's too many, so you need to use pagination. Totally understandable, makes sense. Google's come a long way in being able to understand this kind of a thing. Bing is further behind, obviously, always. So Zales, at the top is the category page, and using kind of old school URLs with category IDs, and then the next URL down is page 2. There's also another parameter added, which is KPC equals 1. I don't know what that is necessarily. Maybe it's tracking or something. But PG equals 2 is the parameter that we're interested in this case. So if I go into Google, site:/sales.com, in URL, PG equals 2, which is the parameter that creates those paginations, and then the in title to pull out specifically that category, I come up with a result, and I click on the omitted results link at the bottom, and then I come up with this. And this is something that we see all the time and time again, but especially, the minute that I saw Zales URLs, I knew there was going to be a ton of duplication because of the JSP ID problems that we typically see. So not unusual at all, but a huge opportunity to fix this. There are 100, 125 duplicate results. Some are sorts, some are different pages, some are tracking IDs, all kinds of stuff. And haters gonna hate, but Panda's coming for you. This is another problem. It's always been an opportunity for SEO, but post the Panda algorithm change, it's become more and more important to fix this. Great opportunity to fix this. So how do we do that? Well, there's basically 3 different methods that you can use. There's what we call the classic pagination method, there's the view all method, and there's a new method with rel, prev, and next. So I'll talk about those. So in the classic method, you've got your page 1, and the pages, you've got a series of pages about the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, okay? So page 1 is your Fresh Prince page. That's sort of the canonical main landing page. Page 2 is high top fade. Page 3 is Bel-Air. Page 4 is one strap overall, okay? So what you do is you take any page 2 and deeper, and you annotate that with a no index follow. A no index follow is a meta tag that you put in the head of the document to basically say, crawl this page, follow the links on the page, but don't put in the index. And then each one should have what's called a self-referencing rel canonical tag. Rel canonical will roll up or canonicalize duplicates to a main primary canonical version. Self-referencing because sometimes a deep page on page 4 could have a tracking ID appended, and if it doesn't have a self-referencing rel canonical tag that points back to itself, it's going to create another dupe, ad infinitum, something like that. Thank you, George, Mickey. I knew you'd know. Pages 2 through N should also have unique titles, URLs, and metadata. Make those pages unique, even though you're no indexing them, because it's a better quality signal. They'll get crawled more, maybe even more weight will be placed on the links on those pages. The key is with this is you want deeper pages to get crawled and all the products on there to get crawled too. The problem that we see a lot is that a site will have, say you have 10 pages, each one using rel canonical pointing back to page 1. And when that happens, the products or items on those deep pages don't get crawled because the rel canonical tag is sort of like a 301. It basically says, okay, this page is actually that page, great, bam, done, rolled them up. All the items and products on this deeper page really don't get the love. So this is what works best. And so you're not really directly transferring equity from the deeper pages to the first page, but you're sort of doing it in a second order effect, right? You're no indexing, they're getting crawled, those products are getting crawled, and the breadcrumbs are getting followed, the internal linking is pointing back to this page 1 that becomes your ranking candidate. So that's the classic method. The view all is even better, but it's harder to accomplish. Zales was a perfect example. There's over 1,400 items on that one page. You're not going to have a view all for that. But if you have a few hundred, you can use progressive rendering to get them to load slowly as the page scrolls. They can work pretty well. And for smaller view alls, it works very well. So basically, it's very simple. You just take the view all, you make that your ranking candidate, your canonical, and you just use rel canonical and everything else to point back to the view all. The key with this is every deep page should have all the stuff that's present on the view all because you're going to rel canonical it. So if it doesn't have all the stuff that's on the view all, you're going to lose all that stuff from the crawl. So basically, the view all becomes the ranking page, and the problem with this is the view alls need to load really, really fast. Merchandising teams don't necessarily like this method because it tends to, well, in our experience, view all pages are not the most popular pages within an organization. Now, this is probably the best of all, and what we're starting to recommend more and more. And this uses a tag called rel-prev, rel-next, and all it does is an HTML5 element that basically says to a search engine, okay, this is a component page, and this is a component page, and this is one, and they're all part of the same series or family. And so please roll them up all together, make them all the same, follow all the links on the pages. Rel-next, rel-prev is a meta tag, exactly like noindex. They also should have self-referencing rel-canonical tags to avoid the duplicate problem, which I talked about earlier. And then, as an optional step, we'll even annotate the rel-prev next pages with no index, because Google says that sometimes what can happen is pages that are tagged with rel-next prev, deep pages can still show up in the index as a ranking result if they're relevant for the query. So say we implement all this correctly, and Joe user comes along and searches for something, and Google decides that a deep page is a proper result set to return. It's going to return that. Even though it's technically not indexed, it'll still fire it at search time. And we don't like that because we like to have complete control over everything because we're control freaks when it comes to SEO. So this is basically what happens with rel-prev next. Everything, all the pages in the series get rolled up to one canonical. Works very well. I talked about this. It's interesting with HTML5. So there's another tactic, hreflang, with international SEO. Has anybody used hreflang in international SEO at all? It's a way that you can tell Google, any search engine, but Google's the only one that supports it now. You can tell Google that, hey, here's a page in American English, and here's a page in British English, and they're exactly the same except for the currency. They're in pounds sterling and American dollars, so please treat these the same. They shouldn't be duplicate content, but fire the correct one regionally according to the user. And so Google can do two things now with these HTML5 hints. It can force or make changes to the index, and then it can fire the appropriate result at search time, which is kind of crazy and cool. Side note on view alls. I talked about how view alls have to be fast. They don't work as well because of all the items usually on them. We don't see them being very popular with our clients. But users do love them, and users love search results. And I have some data to share. So here's, using Zappos as the example, here's what we call an advanced landing page. This is /clothing, and it's carefully crafted to have images, some products down below. There's content further down here on the page. It's completely customized, manually created page. Here's a clothing search result. All it is products front and center. That's it. There's no content on the page. There's no text content on the page. Okay? So if I do a site zappos.com in URL clothing, and I pull out all the different clothing URLs that are indexed, some are search results and some are advanced landing pages. Men's clothing, that's an advanced landing page. Women's clothing is as well. The stuff with the numbers on the end, those are search results. But if we look at the data, the advanced landing pages from organic convert at about a 1.4% rate. And the search results from organic convert at about a 3% rate, 2.9%. And I used a lot more search results to try to bias this. So if you can see the blurred background, there's a lot more traffic coming in from search results. Even with that greater sample set, much, much higher conversion rate. And this is what we see a lot, is that search results tend to perform better and convert better because users tend to like them better. So that's why a view all can really be a great thing to do. Sometimes users will go in and they'll just choose the sort and they'll put all the products on the page anyway because they want to see everything. So any questions? Pagination? Going here. So basically our recommendation is use a view all if you can. When it's not an option, use rel-prev, rel-next. Or just let us do it and don't even think about it. Faceted navigation, a huge problem search engines have is understanding all this this is fancy Boolean search that happens with an interface. You can click on different attributes, and you can segment, and you can permutate, you can go crazy. Very cool, very useful, very popular, very common. Each one of these kind of categories on Zappos expands, and there are lots and lots of different options, obviously. So this is a big problem from a crawl point of view, from a search engine's point of view, can create huge issues. So we solve this with, I think, a strategy that will be easy to replicate across almost any implementation. It'll always be unique based on the technology and the platform, et cetera, but this is the philosophy behind it that really, really works. So JMP Cycles, great company, great development team, really know what they're doing. Basically what they said is, okay, if we have a page about motorcycle brake calipers and kits, this category page right here, we're going to create the URL according to how a user would search for it. Motorcycle brake calipers and kits, very intuitive. Now, when a visitor clicks on some sort of attribute that we'd call an overhead attribute, being that it's not valuable from a search point of view, there's not search history there, people aren't going into Google and searching for brake calipers, $25, things like that. Any of these overhead attributes, we append to the end of the URL with a question mark and a parameter, and then rel canonical back to the closest available parent. In this case, it's everything before the question mark. Okay? Now, when a visitor is in there and chooses, say, Brembo as a facet, the Brembo gets added into the URL right into the path, according to the search order that makes sense and is intuitive. So it's not just added on to the end. It's always forced into the same exact spot, motorcycle parts by Brembo and brake calipers and kits. And then as you start to add attributes, anything that's so-called overhead and doesn't matter from a search point of view just gets added on as a parameter at the end. And anything that matters gets forced into the path of the URL in the right order, and the order is always preserved every time. And then that is rel canonical. I don't have a screenshot of it, but this is rel canonical back to everything before the question mark. So it's a super simple kind of approach to this that works really well. One of the problems you can run into is you could have a faceted nav that creates literally an infinite amount of permutations, and eBay would be a great example of this, or Zappos, and in Amazon. When that happens and you're using things like rel canonical, those pages still have to be crawled and fetched, and that means your crawl issues can still be pretty severe because everything still has to be fetched and crawled, just as it would be if there was nothing on there, if there were no annotations to give hints or signals to the search engines. So it's something to be thinking about, but we found this to be, sites as big as, how many products does JMP Cycles have, you guys? 30,000? More? Probably a lot more, huh? Okay, thanks, Todd. Awesome. Bam. Okay, faceted nav. So takeaway. So the basic approach is identify the essential facets, the stuff that you want to appear in search and organic search. Look at your paid search data, look at all the data you have, and then always force the canonical path in the same order, regardless of how it's selected by the visitor, and then you just build those URLs according to that taxonomy. And it works incredibly well. Okay, one more. How am I doing on time? Good? Okay. All right. Internal linking. So here's something we see a lot. Here's a LL Bean, and you guys aren't here right now. LL Bean's not here, I don't think. Okay. So here's LL Bean. Great brand, great company. They've got this URL, men's pants, and they've got a tracking ID appended on the end of it. No big deal, right? That's good. They're rel canonicalling back to the canonical, everything before the question mark. Okay, great. Now I'm in this category, actually this product level, and it's double L chinos or whatever the product is. And this is the URL, okay? Fine. And when I look at the rel canonical, it's a really pretty URL. So see what they did there? They took the same URL, which ends in 51909, and then they added a parameter, question mark page equals, and they just filled it with keyword-rich terms to make a pretty URL. This is naughty and a no-no. They're basically cheating and saying, okay, this is our really preferred URL right here. but we never link to it anywhere on the website. It is not part of our internal navigation, it's not part of our site, and it's working for them, but it is not recommended. And this is the kind of thing, this is not what rel canonical was intended for. You can see on the left-hand side are all their real URLs. Those are actually the canonicals because that's what they're actually using on the website. And on the right-hand side are all their pretty URLs, which aren't used on the site at all. Every time they get a link, it's to one of the ones on the left. What they're putting in their XML sitemaps, the ones on the left. All their internal links, the ones on the left. Those are their URLs. The ones on the right just look good. But crazily enough, it's actually working for them. And we did some spot checks, and they tend to have pretty good rankings for these. It's not scalable, it's not sustainable. It's scalable, it's not sustainable. It's something that won't work over time. Another problem that we see a lot. So here are two results in the index for the same thing, the same product. And the reason is the one on the bottom has a tracking parameter appended to it, and it's rel canonically back to itself. Here's a problem we see a lot when companies use rel canonical is they deploy it and they don't properly self-reference the canonical. So in this case, there's the rel canonical tag. I know it's kind of small to see. And at the end is a parameter called catalog ID equals 18. So they're self-referencing to the non-canonical. So that's a problem. You should always self-reference to the actual canonical. 1-800-Flowers does this perfectly. So you'll see on the left there are all kinds of different parameters added to their URLs, some of which have different IDs appended, but every time they canonical back to the actual canonical. So that's a really simple, small thing, but something we see all the time and can be a big problem from an SEO POV. Just FYI. Sorry. Acronym mania. Okay. So, what are the takeaways here? Always use rel canonical for good, not evil. I don't think LL Bean is using it for evil, but I think they're just kind of cheating a little bit there. Those really aren't their URLs. It needs to be a real URL that's really part of your site. Always, always, always be consistent as you can with your internal linking. This is one of the keys with SEO is consistency. When your internal links and your XML sitemaps and your backlinks and your canonical signals and all this stuff lines up and points in the same direction, it can be super, super powerful. And then careful when you self-reference with rel canonical to actually self-reference correctly to the real canonical, not to a parameter or something like that. Because Google will follow those, and they work pretty powerfully now. When Google came out with this, a couple years ago now, they said, oh, rel canonical tags are hints. But now they're much more than hints. They're very strong. They're practically directives. Thank you, guys. That's all I got. Questions?
We use a URL rewriter on our site, and so we have the nice links.
Okay.
Those links aren't living on our site on a page anywhere.
Right, okay, that's fine. So that's different. So a user comes along, or a search engine, any user agent comes along, and they ask for a page off Woodcraft, and on the back end you've got a dynamic URL that's like the true URL, but you're rewriting it on the front end when you return it, right? So as long as you're returning the same URL to everybody, you're okay. And actually, as I say that, there are nuances with that. It depends, once again. One of the uniqueities there is Amazon will rewrite their URLs based on the user agent. So if you're Google, you get these nice pretty URLs. And if you're us, you get an ugly URL that's for tracking. It's called cloaking, but it's cloaking it's okay cloaking, Who else does that? 1-800-Flowers does that as well. Other sites do it. It's pretty common. It's nothing wrong with it if it's done right. So we have to look at your particular implementation, but it shouldn't be a problem to do that. The only problem would be is if you were generating URLs, returning those to Google and Bing, returning a different set to users, and you were also returning different content on the pages and stuff like that. If it's just URLs, you're probably okay. Although Google publicly does not like that and will say that they don't like that, it's probably okay.